Do I look like a naked rat?
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
What is it that you really like to cook?
Each.
Anyone can cook.
He's the one behind these recipes.
We get to really be part of people's lives.
20 minutes for 2 medium rare steaks? This is bullshit! Yes, chef.
I need to hear you.
Yes, chef.
It's your call.
Lady.
Look at me. Wake up.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Dry Storage Confessionals, where the shift ends but the stories keep pouring. Y'all know the drill. Today is going to look a little bit different. It's our first solo episode. Oh, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little scared. This is also my first time recording with this fabulous Blue Yeti mic. I have 2 more in transit right now, so we'll still probably be using the little Rode mics from time to time. Like, I go to a lot of music festivals, and even the other day I was at Six Flags and I got some footage like asking some of the concession workers some questions. So out and about for sure we'll hang on to those, but I'm really excited to be able to move forward with using some Blue Yetis hardwired. So be looking for just like a little change up in the setup, I guess next time. It'll look a little bit different. We're getting a little bit more professional, moving on up. Even though I got a really good deal on my Blue Yeti mics, and them Rhodes were not cheap. We're not cheap, honey. So, bear with me. I'm also listening to myself. This is the first time I've ever really done that, aside from just testing it out. That's a really unique experience. To me, it sounds like you'll be able to hear every little, like, movement. And I have dogs, and I might need something to drink. So I just feel like even when I'm moving right now, it's going to make a lot of ruckus. So I'm scared about that. But let's see how it goes. I thought there would be no better setting than my own little bar area here. We're right next to my kitchen. And as you can see, a little glimpse, I'm a lover of vintage. I love to collect really cool glass pieces. So you can kind of maybe play I Spy while we do this episode here. See, even me, like, switching my legs, I feel like I can hear every little thing. I'm kind of going to interview myself. We're going to do a little bit of a walk down memory lane. Obviously, there's no guest, and I just kind of want to talk about what it was like to truly grow up in the restaurant industry, to love it, to fight with it, to break up with it, come back to it time and time again, and, just maybe, especially now that I'm a parent, I see a huge perspective, obviously, but I've always been hopefully on the wiser end, I would say. And, just want to speak on maybe how to balance it, what it's like, balancing the restaurant industry and raising good humans, what it might mean for the child and the decisions that you make, how you choose to proceed, pros and cons, and just hash it all out. Maybe just try to help any parents listening how to balance it all. So let's go. Let's get into it. And just to catch up as well, we've gone 8 weeks. 8 or 9 weeks I feel like is a good, obviously quarterly throughout the year. So we did 8 episodes, and then on the 9th week I did take a week break. And so I will probably follow a similar schedule to school, although my son is not in school yet. Have a lot of young family members and stuff, and so we also live in a college town, very involved in that. So like last week was fall break, and it just kind of fit right in. So not saying that I'll go all Christmas break without dropping an episode, or like all summer or anything, but it will kind of follow a similar schedule, just so that there's no burnout, and we can all have fresh content to discuss, of course. So I was not disappearing. Just took our first little quarter break. How fun is that? Cheers to 8 episodes. I'm proud. It literally flew by. One thing I struggle with, I guess, is just like balancing it all. It is a lot of work to edit, and I feel like as soon as I'm done editing and posting on Wednesday, it's like already time to edit again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, So just really need to get ahead and batching up some episodes and stuff like that, which I was ahead an episode, but then I used that extra episode. So when I had like a cancellation or something. So, just need to stay up to par and ahead of the game. All right, now let's get into it for real. Segment 1, first memory behind the bar. My earliest memory in a restaurant or bar, if I had to say, it was right next to, if you are local to Auburn, it was right next to where the downtown Taco Bell is, where there's that like skinny set of apartments. It's not too big, but it's like 4 or 5 stories up. It was right there. And I want to say like J. Smith's, but that is not right. Oh God, I'm butchering it. Anyways, I think that was first. I have a memory there, and they would do a Sunday brunch type thing, I think, or maybe just a lunch buffet. And it was an old historic house that they turned into a restaurant. And I remember there was peach cobbler, and I would get to go, why ever, I don't know, but I would be up there, and I remember eating that peach cobbler, and it was so freaking good. It was perfect. And to this day, peach cobbler is one of my favorites, and I'm always looking for a peach cobbler that honestly brings me back to that moment, and I loved it so very much. And we had a little friend, my dad's boss, his son would be there, and I remember we would play, after, I guess we would go to preschool. I think I was in preschool at that time, so that would have been first, yeah. And we would play out back. They had like a back kind of just like storage shed that was like the office or whatever. And I remember we would play back there. And that would officially be my earliest restaurant memory, and it only carried on from there. So, little backstory, my parents both graduated from Auburn University, War Eagle, and so I've been here from the jump, and they both got, my dad got a degree in business, and my mom got a degree in hospitality and management, if I am saying so correct. And so they both were in the industry. My mom helped open Hamilton's downtown. My dad was at Amsterdam for a while. Had a lot of things that he can speak on from there. Probably a lot of learning points and turning points in his life. And if I were to say that I definitely have been the back office kid and the bar top coloring book kid. I would just find a spot and go sit as I got older and would color and talk to the servers. Or, yeah, I would go sit in the back office. At Amsterdam, they had a separate back office space, and I remember spending some time back there. I remember when they built and added on the Starry Night room in the back. I'm not sure if it's even still called that, but I think that was what it was originally called when it was like being built. Yeah, a lot of faint memories there. First time hosting was at Amsterdam. I would stand there during lunch on days I guess I didn't have school, and he worked on the weekends, and I was with my dad because my parents are divorced, and so I would stand at the front, and they didn't make me worry about too many logistics. I guess there would have just been maybe like one server inside and one server outside. So all they had me say was like, how many, and indoor, outdoor, and I would count the menus and take them inside or outside. And that would have probably been around kindergarten or so, because I was obviously old enough to comprehend counting the guests and then counting the table numbers, or the seats at the table. So I'm a little nervy, for real. Ooh, interviewing myself. I'm reading some questions that I kind of jotted down for myself. I wasn't really a kitchen kid until I actually worked, because I was just kind of scared of the kitchen. So my son runs around in the kitchen sometimes, but yeah, I don't really remember too much of running around in the kitchen. Now, at Terracotta, on the other hand, I do. Now, simultaneously, my mom was at Hamilton's and managed there, and she also worked out at the Salgahatchee Robert Trent Jones, excuse me. And maybe Salkehatchie as well. I don't know. But for sure, Robert Trent Jones. And I remember one of the earliest memories for that would have been like waking up super early because she would have to go out there so early. Yeah, that just stuck out in my mind. But after that, she worked at Terracotta Catering Company downtown near the fire station, and ran and owned by Billy Lee. He is an OG, an iconic figure of this community. I would love to have you on, Billy, and ask you some questions in a more professional manner, of course. But Billy Lee, Carol, Darcy was in the kitchen back there. Now Terracotta, I definitely was in the kitchen, but that was a small crew, and I just remember that. I just remember it being small crew and quiet. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I forgot a huge one. My dad worked at the downtown Mellow Mushroom. See, I'm going all out of chronological order, but this is all very early days. And I remember one time we took a field trip with my preschool. So, okay. Yeah, I got the timeline in my head now. And we took a field trip to Mellow Mushroom with my preschool, and we got to look at the big pizza ovens and watch them, knead the dough and toss the dough. And then they all cooked us some pizzas, I'm pretty sure, and we got to eat them and carry on about our day. So that was a really cool memory. It always felt comforting and chaotic in a way. It was definitely both. There's some dark sides to it. Alcohol has been a part of our family. It felt comfortable because it was all I knew. Restaurant industry, and having my parents work in the restaurant industry. Of course, my mom went on and mainly did other things that wasn't really in the restaurant industry. So when I'm speaking on, I guess most of it would be where my dad would have worked. But it was definitely comfortable because it was all I knew. And of course, the fun things of getting the peach cobbler, and you always know it's special, I guess to me, because it's just like a special experience. There's always some guests that or other kids at the time that probably would have been like, oh, I want to go to the kitchen. We're like, oh, I want Shirley Temples on hand. And I had loved Shirley Temples. Oh my gosh. And they used to make me this thing called a ladybug special. And I don't remember what. Grenadine and Sprite and maybe orange juice or something would have been a ladybug special, but that was a specific one for me. And just getting, access to bread rolls and stuff like that was definitely good, but it was also chaotic. Just like I spoke on, just those really early mornings, and then also really late nights as well. Inconsistent schedules. Yes, there's flexibility in your scheduling because there's more shifts that can be worked, but it's also really straining and hard as well because, the second someone else finds out that they have the day off, they're going to make plans. So it doesn't mean you have all the chance in the world to just call out or get your shift covered. So if I was sick or something like that, there would have to be grandparents to come into town or, babysitters a lot. Definitely that type of thing. Remember, really early on, I would stay out at a family friend's house, and when my mom would work late nights, she would come and pick me up, and it was probably not that late, but to me it was pretty late, and so I had no concept of time, I guess, truly at that point. But yeah, definitely remember feeling like I was getting picked up in the middle of the night, and it was probably 11 or 12 or something. There isn't a set time and same routine every afternoon, especially that plus having separated parents. It's just always been a lot of bebopping around. It wasn't until I purchased my own home at the age of 22 where I had just one set vanity with all of my stuff. It's always been a backpack for school or work, and then another bag with all my other stuff. I didn't go back and forth between my parents' house after I graduated high school. I had some, stayed with boyfriends and, okay, whatever. It wasn't until I lived on my own, let's put it this way. It wasn't until I lived on my own until I had just a singular vanity for all of my stuff. That was just a crazy feeling, and it still kind of is. I've lived majority with 2 houses than 1, so it's still interesting to have all of my stuff in one place and not be bebopping all over. So yeah, divorced parents that are still together and are co-parenting wonderfully, which I'm very blessed with, plus the inconsistency of the schedules made it a lot, for sure. As I got older, there were the frustrations with not being home when the expected time of arrival was. So, maybe it was you're supposed to be home at 7 or whatever, and it wasn't until like 9:30. And, that it would be cool because, yeah, I get the apartment to myself. I get to chill, whatever. But also it's like, okay, time is ticking. I'm getting frustrated, that kind of thing. It's weird speaking on my own stuff. It's really easy to ask other people, but it's hard to speak on your own stuff. Yeah, just trying to open up about it. I mean, I'm not shaming or at all. My parents were young and grinding and doing the damn thing, and I'm so proud of them, and I love this industry, obviously. So yes, I mean, and I experience it as well when I have to work from time to time. It just happens. You're supposed to be home at 9, and things might pop off or something comes up or whatever, and it's not till 10:30 where you get home. I totally understand, but that's few and far between for me now, thank goodness. But yeah, it's definitely tough. I feel like I did not know from the start that I was growing up in something different than my friends. Yeah, I don't feel like I knew that I was growing up in something different than my friends until later. And then obviously just natural things start happening. Definitely like used the time that I did have the house alone once I got older and had a car. I mean, I was 16 or whatever, to go hang out at friends' houses and maybe do something I wasn't supposed to do, something like that. And maybe that's where it can be sticky if you don't have a kid with their head on their shoulders the right way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't want to impose that I did anything bad or that I was put in a bad position by any means. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if you don't have a good foundation and a good home life and a secure relationship with your child and a good head on your make sure that your child has a good head on their shoulders, then yes, when you do say that, oh, I'm going to be home at 6 or whatever, it is okay that you're going to be home at 9:30 because you know that your child's going to stay safe and at least make the right choices. Now, if they were not, then that can get very hairy, and that can start becoming something that they take advantage of and know that they could plan around. So I definitely know, like, if I wanted to do things during that time, I 100% could have used that time to go out and sneak around and get into trouble. And luckily I was wiser, like I stated earlier. So I guess I was having so much trouble speaking because I didn't want it to seem like anything that it wasn't. I made very good choices, and I hope that my child does the same, and I hope that my sisters do the same with their time alone, because every child has time alone. Doesn't matter the job. They should, as a part of growing once they get older. And so, yeah, once I was 16, 17, it's okay if I'm home till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night sometimes. It would just mean that there's more opportunities to do things that maybe your child wouldn't do right there in front of you. And so you just really have to make sure that if there's a chance that you still have them accounted for, whether that be at a friend's house or something like that. And even when they say that they're at a friend's house, making sure that that's true, because it's really easy to say, oh, I'm going to that friend's house, and they don't. So obviously can invite friends over. I definitely did invite friends over once I got older, and one time got in trouble for doing that. So yeah, it can just depend. There is obviously the environment of alcohol. And so again, you just want to make sure that there is the right knowledge. And I feel like in my case, being around it enough to where I was not ignorant to it worked out in my benefit, because knock on wood, I've never gotten in trouble. I've never done anything crazy, detrimentally crazy, anything like that. And so, yeah, you just want to make sure that it doesn't go too far down the rabbit hole or the loophole, but you just want to make sure it doesn't go too far. But I feel like my exposure made it to where kids are either going to go ham when they get loose or they're going to be okay. And honestly, in my opinion, if you hide your child from a lot of stuff and make them sheltered, it's just probably going to make them lash out more when they do get that freedom. And so I guess my healthy exposure to the nightlife industry, the bar industry, the restaurant industry made me be able to come to terms with learning how to have a good relationship with it, because I was able to see people that took it too far and people that did not. And so I was able to find my way in that. We'll leave it at that. So a smell or sound that would instantly take me back, probably, this is a weird one, but like fresh, clean bar mats. Like honestly, when they're new, I just remember that rubber smell. I really like that rubber smell. Fresh pool floats, it's kind of similar with a rubber bar mat. I really enjoyed that smell. I love the bacon in the morning. That is delicious. Maybe a bad smell. I mean, a ticket machine click obviously is going to come to head. Like that's forever etched in your brain. A bad smell. One thing that I do hate about working in the restaurant industry is that luckily for us at the pub, we have upstairs bathrooms that are not typically open to the public. So we can go up there, but like always having to share a restroom with people that are actively eating sucks. Like it always smells like ass in there and it's really annoying and it's really gross. That brings me back, is having to just go. Like I have a mental block. I will not go into the bathroom if I walk in and I smell like someone had just been in there. I won't do it. No. I'm going to try to stick to the questions because I gave y'all a brief background. I feel like I wanted to walk you through it, but then I also just want to stick to the questions. And we haven't even gotten to when I started working in the industry, like legally, or getting paid, compensated. I don't know. When I was 16. Being raised in the industry probably shaped my view of work and people in a good way and a bad, predominantly a good way. Hard work. I know hard work. I know how to work hard. I know how to work fast. I know how to work diligently. Yeah. So that has definitely shaped me in that way. I also know how to pick out people that don't work hard and that do cut corners and do slack off and that kind of thing. So you learn how to pick those people out. It made me see people, I feel like, maybe in more of a negative way. I try to hold on to my really good experiences because I love people, and that's why I love continuing this industry, is because I love hosting people and I love making sure that people have a good time. But unfortunately, that's hard to do. I mean, that's the reality, is that people are often dissatisfied, discontent, with a lot of stuff. I don't know. It can just be it's not a lot of stuff. It can just be one thing goes wrong and it's a really big deal. And a lot of the times it's stuff that has nothing to do with maybe the direct reflection of the restaurant or yourself or whatever. And so sometimes that's just hard to do. People are hard to please and they're really picky and they yeah. So I don't know, maybe that has put a negative taste in my mouth. The industry kid experience. I've seen a lot of adults burn out. I've seen a lot of adults crash and burn. I've seen a lot of, and this is looking back, and just all together, kid, adult. I've seen a lot of people just get consumed by being around alcohol. And that's the harsh part of the industry. It's really hard to find a restaurant that is not surrounded by copious amounts of some type of vice. And yeah, that's unfortunate, definitely. I see that a lot. I see a lot of people falling to addiction in alcohol or a drug that they pick up, or a bad habit, or just staying out late and partying, and they just get too exhausted and they can't do it. Just the late night, they will not be responsible and go home and go to bed. They will not eat before their shift. They will not still wake up in the morning and do activities. They will be sleeping till 3. I mean, sometimes you have to do that, and that's totally fine. But a lot of people crumble to it. And yeah, other than that, a lot of people move on from it. So it's hard because it's just a stepping stone for them. So it's usually one or the other. It's either, a stepping stone to till they make a certain amount of savings, or until they pay off their wedding, or a stepping stone until they graduate, or a stepping stone until they move, or you're in it long time. So it's hard to find a medium. People come and they go so quickly sometimes. And that sucks because it's nice to lose somebody because they're doing a shitty job, but it's never good just to lose somebody because they were never intending on staying here forever to begin with. That's a harsh reality. Why do I keep saying adults like I'm not one? I'm 27 years old. I've seen a lot of people fall in love. I guess I'm talking about it from a kid perspective, but this has been all together. I've seen a lot of people fall in love. We've seen a lot of marriages come from it. It's really cool when people meet in the industry and they make an out of it together, whatever. Yes, and a lot of really sweet love stories, a lot of babies made, and that's wonderful. All of them, many of them become family. Like I said, obviously I'm hurt by so many people that I've made great relationships with, but they were never intending on staying, and that's really hard, and that's a harsh truth of the industry again. Shit, you work for a couple months and your family. I mean, you just experience so many heightened emotions, so much in so little time. It's just like we all talk about, on the reality shows and Love Island and stuff, like, y'all don't really know each other, but they're like, but we just go through so much and we experience so much. Or like camp counselors, y'all only work together for 6 weeks, but you come out of it feeling like family and you talk to each other for sometimes the rest of your lives. And like, when it is such an intense time, you bond, trauma bond, you money bond, you hustle bond. And yeah, it weighs more, and very quickly it's family, because you often find out everything about that person due to, scheduling and why they have to go here and why they can't make it this day, and what they're doing later on, what they did earlier in the day, why they're so tired, that kind of thing. And so you talk a lot. I mean, it's a social industry. It's a lot different than a desk job, and it's a lot deeper than a desk job. So yeah, the stakes are, or the weave is woven very, very tight, for sure. I feel like I realized that the restaurant industry was not a normal job world when I did have a job that was not in the industry. And I said, wow, it's not normal to just be able to drink on the job. And you're not supposed to, obviously. No owner wants you to, but 9 times out of 10, it happens. And like, if it doesn't happen, and for a fact that it doesn't happen at your restaurant ever, point blank period, ever, like, let me know how it works. Because, like, say you have a teacher that, like, gets busted for having a shooter in their desk or something, like, that's a huge, huge, huge deal. And I mean, yeah, because it's kids, but even, like, a desk job, like, that's a big deal. You get fired and terminated and blacklisted and all kinds of things for any type of inebriation. And so it's just very interesting when you do step out of it, and like, you do have to make the realization and come to terms with the fact that, like, that's not normal. It's not normal to have coworkers that, go outside and have a drink. It's not, and then come right back in. It's not normal to have a backpack with a bottle in it. It's not normal to have it tucked, in the bread or something, like just all these different restaurants that I've been in and seen. Like, that's just not normal for jobs as a whole, but it is normal for that industry. And that is, I feel like, when I really separated it and was like, whew, yeah. I knew I was always, this question is, were you ever the kid at the bar doing homework doing homework or rolling silverware? I remember I loved doing the carpet vacuums, trying to think of jobs I distinctively remember helping with. Obviously wiping tables, and then yes, I don't remember who taught me how to roll silverware, but I just feel like it was kind of one of those things that like I just always knew how to do. It was ingrained, subconsciously knew how to roll silverware for forever. And that's how long ago I probably remembered how to roll silverware. Like, I don't remember when I learned how to tie my shoe because it's been so long. Hi. So, yeah, definitely did that. When my dad came back from Tampa and he went to when he opened the Irish Bread Pub, he was there for several years, and then he actually went to Montgomery. And I remember being upstairs. That one had 3 floors at that Irish Bread Pub downtown. And I remember being up top and would just be like laminating menus and organizing menus and stuff like that. And then at the Opelika Irish Bread Pub, sitting upstairs and doing homework all the time. Because I guess I would get picked up from school, and then we'd have to run some errands and then go back upstairs, back up to the pub, and then I would go up and he'd have to finish some stuff. I would go upstairs and do my homework, and, he would send up some chicken fingers or whatever for dinner, just make it down there. What did I learn early that most people don't learn until their 20s or 30s about people, hustle, empathy? Hustle, yeah, how to work hard. So I guess we can kind of blip into my history a little bit. I started working at my first job. I remember when I turned 16. Well, actually a couple months before I turned 16, I was like, I really want to get a job. I didn't assume that I was going to get gas money. Like, ain't nobody was assuming that I was just going to get paid gas money. I immediately was like, I need to get a job. And so, yeah, that's 100% what the industry taught me was you just work for your money and work for what you want. Went around downtown. I remember getting applications from everywhere downtown. Never got a call back from Toomers. I guess they focused on, college kids and stuff, which was fine. And I think that's what most of them did. And so I wound up getting a job at Chick through my friend Cameron Nix. And his dad actually owned Chick. So it was another friend that I met in high school that had a parent that owned a restaurant. And so I started working there, and I wanted to work, I would always beg Dad, are you going to let me, when are you going to pay me? Blah, 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 blah. And he always wanted me to work in other restaurants first and learn how to work in a restaurant from other business owners and other managers and get a foot in the, be able to hold my own before I came and worked for him, because we never wanted it to be like a weird situation, a weird dynamic where, I might get free passes for fucking up or like doing something wrong, or, it wouldn't be uneven. So that way when I did come in and work for him, I could be treated just the same, and I could, be treated just the same. So, and that was always really cool. And that is something that I do recommend if you are a parent that is a restaurant owner or manager, have the opportunity to hire your newly 16-year-old driver or 18-year-old or whatever. Have someone else teach them at another restaurant so that you aren't looked at as, giving them a unfair advantage, or just causing that tension. It will wind to, you inadvertently blaming another employee because you don't want to cause that stress between you and your loved one or whatever. But if you have them enter on even playing grounds, it makes a big difference. And let me backtrack. When he was at the Montgomery Irish Bread Pub, we would have these St. Patrick's Day street festivals down there, and I would always have like a little food tent outside, and that is something that he would always let me do, and I would always make my money for spring break doing that, because it would always be like the weekend before spring break or, whatever. right before I would go to the beach is typically what it was. And so I would get to hold on to that money and use it. But I would have my little table and I would get to ask a friend to work it with me. And we would have a big, chafing dish of shepherd's pie. And yeah, I would make a ton of money. And I remember one of my earliest tips from somebody was to constantly empty your tip bucket out so that they felt bad for me that I didn't have any tips. And, I can see that if it is a clear tip bucket, just kind of puts people on the spot. Is that morally right? Maybe not, but maybe just playing into their ethos a little bit. Ethos, logos, pathos, one of those. I don't fucking know. For single parents in the industry, I think I spoke on some of the pros and cons a bit already. The biggest one is making sure that your kid has the right head on their shoulders. If you are working late and you are a little bit lenient on maybe you said you were going to be home at a certain time and you are home later in the evening, that can easily lead down to a wrong path for sure. And then just being around alcohol if you don't have a child, if you have a child that is a little bit mischievous, being around alcohol and having that close knowledge, it can be used in the wrong way. But some of the pros are just the flexibility of your scheduling. You might have the opportunity to kind of make your own schedule, have some really good friends in your workplace that can pick up for you if you need it, if your child's sick, whatever else. But also it's not as easy as it seems, because say your child calls you while you're in the middle of a lunch shift, you can't necessarily just get up and go. And like another guest spoke on previously, if they do choose to get up and go, that's the rest of the money for the day. If they do have 2 tables or 3 tables when your child calls, unfortunately, you have to transfer those tables over to another server and they get that tip and you have to eat it and go pick your kid up. So while it may be flexible, it might not work out in your favor in the long run. But it's also quick money if it is a thing where, it's just a side hustle and just some extra spending money, but then you're trading out a lot of really important times. So, a big con is all the missed holidays and yes, you're closed on Christmas Eve sometimes or whatever your restaurant does, but the other day it's probably going to be open. I mean, it's rare that you're going to be closed for a week. I mean, the service industry is 24/7 and people love to go out to eat the night after Thanksgiving and the night before because they don't want to cook or they don't want to eat their leftovers. Or the night of because they don't like to do Thanksgiving or they don't have family to do Thanksgiving. So it's a constant industry that's always working and there's always people that are hungry. And so that's a pro within itself is that there are always people that are hungry. On Christmas Day, you can make some of your biggest money, but guess where you are on Christmas Day? You're working. So what's it going to be? I mean, that's just a personal choice. It can really be troubling and hard when the child is in school. So they're in school all day long and that might be when you have your time off. And then at nights you're having to work because that's when the dinner rush is and that's when you make great tips and that's when you're bartending and hustling and making great money. But when are you going to see your kid? And then you're not going to see them on the weekend because that's when we're busiest and you're off on Mondays and Tuesdays. So, or Mondays and Thursdays. So that's really tough. You can very quickly become scheduled all the time, working a lot of hours that you're going to be tired. And then when you are off, you're going to want to sleep. Or you're going to want to clean. So it can be a lot. There's not as much structure. While there's flexibility, there's a lack of structure, and that can become a beast in itself, and it can be hard to tame once people get comfortable scheduling you this, or you did commit to, okay, yes, I can work this week. Well, then suddenly you're scheduled the same shift next week, and then the next week, and then the next week, and then now you're working an extra shift every week on top of what you're already doing. So it can get out of hand because there's not as much structure. And it's really hard to plan vacations, plan stuff like that in advance where you don't have like designated time off, or you don't even have the staffing in concrete enough to know that you will be able to have that time off then, or you can leave. And if you are leaving, you're not going to be able to do a weekend trip where it's fun and all the events are taking place. It's going to have to be a Sunday where everything's closed, a Monday, and come home Tuesday. And I definitely want to dive into that more deeper later on, so I think I might do a separate podcast on that, going in a little more in detail. So we'll move on from there. This is a saying, once you're in, you never leave. That's really debatable in the industry, and a lot of people say that it holds a lot of weight. Once you're in the industry, you never get out. And I think that it is such addicting money, and it is so easy to get wrapped up in it, where you're just hustling and grinding and showing up every day and coming home with fat money, and it is working out, that some people, while it was supposed to be just a temporary stop, never make it to that next stop. And they, they were taking a gap year and they never go back, or they were, here temporarily and then they're going to move back home and they never do. Or the money is so good because it is such a great industry and the friends are so great and you do have so much fun that you don't want to leave. And why would I go sit down at a desk job when I can go have margaritas on a Tuesday night with my friends while everyone else is showering and meal prepping for their business week? We're on like an opposite schedule, and so if that works for you, then that works for you. But you have to know that while majority of your friends might be having their Halloween party on Friday night, you're going to have yours on a Monday night or a Sunday night when everybody's off. People will stay in it and it will become their career, and they might be really good at it, or they might never know that they fell in love with mixing cocktails so much or just interacting with people so much. And so that can be a really scary thing as well, with like when you are a parent in the industry and you have a child that's wanting to work in the industry. It's just like the scare of, are they giving up everything else that they loved because once they step in, they're never going to step out. My mom definitely was a big advocate for that, of like, I just don't want you to get too tied into it, and like, I don't want it to be your full time, and you need to stay on this X, Y, and Z track and make sure that you always, have other skills and stuff, and not just hone in on that and just be restricted to it. Like, I guess, maybe she felt like she has been in the past. And I definitely have left. I've left the industry. My primary passion is working with adults and children with disabilities. And I worked at Camp Aska on Lake Martin for 4 summers when I was 15, all the way up to graduating high school, and loved that. And then after that, I transitioned into my full-time job at the time at the Exceptional Foundation of East Alabama, and I loved that place so dearly. I was there for about 4 years as well, which is why I ultimately left Camp Aska, because that was a full-time year-round. And so I just really got into the swing of things with that, and then would work at Irish Bread Pub after the fact. So yeah, I definitely got out, and then I'm back out once more now that I have Sloan. We did make that choice once we had him to get out of the industry. We just needed the structure. Mathen had the opportunity to be able to get into contracting, and he eventually wanted to go into nursing school, and so he was like, I can do this contracting and then go into school. And we've been able to have every night home and every weekend home, unless he chooses to work, and rainy days off. And if I'm sick and I've had, some health complications, and it's just been pretty great being able to have that flexibility. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to stay home. I have still been involved. I always will be involved. I do our social media for the Irish Bread Pub, and we're there all the time, hanging out and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm sure I'll be back, but what pulled me back would just be like the people. I mean, specifically the Irish Bread Pub is just a magical place. Maybe others think not. They probably think it's hell. It's a magical place for a lot of people. There's just something special about those walls and what they do to the staff while you're in there, and it can just create just a great dynamic. It's just a great dynamic. We'll just put it that way. And you're just hustling and bustling. And I totally got off. Oh my gosh. I never even finished my work history. I worked at Tend a Chick for a while, and then after that I worked at Big Blue Bagel in downtown Auburn, and I loved that for John Deason. After that I did The Hound, and I worked for Kasha. Would love to get you on the podcast and see what you're up to these days, Miss Ma'am. And I was a host there. Was very scared of the kitchen. The kitchen was huge. It is huge. And I was terrified. I was in high school at that point. By the end of Tend to Chick, the kitchen worker in the back, he was getting me a handle of Fireball to take to the Luke Bryan concert. When I was at Big Blue Bagel, we would go and hang out at Little Italy after hours, after work, and share a picture. We had a Christmas party, and that was my first work Christmas party, and that was a good time. We actually had it in Big Blue Bagel. Yeah, we played games, and there was a keg, and that was a lot of fun. I don't know, I was probably 17 at that point, so I guess maybe 16 at Tend to Chick, 17 at Big Blue, 18 at the Hound. And the Hound was probably where I was the least connected with the staff there, just because it was a really big staff and I was just a host. And there was a lot of college kids, so I was pretty intimidated. But Hensley was the bartender there, and I just knew that she was just the greatest of all time. She still is at the Hound. Iconic. Love you, Hensley. Would love to have you on the podcast as well. But I was definitely intimidated at the Hound. And see, that was kind of the thing, is that really put me in my place. Not that I had big head or anything, but it was just the necessary steps so that I didn't have a big head when I did work at the Irish Bread Pub. I worked for a school, after school care for a little bit at one of the elementary schools, and then worked at the pub. So I started working at the pub when I was probably 18 or 19. And started from scratch. I started as a host, was a host for a long time. Always, that's my heart and soul. I'm gonna run that shit. Lead hostess, server, worked my way up, bartended, front of house manager, and then would do all three. I would work attendee, bar shift, front of house manage at the same time with no host. So I would seat tables, had me a 3 or 4 little table section. My bar top would take to-go orders and run that bitch. And then my boyfriend at the time, but my husband currently, would be in the kitchen. So we would tag team it, and it would be really cool. Or if we did have a host, I would bounce back and forth between bartending and expo. And run it up. So I think my relationship has morphed from admiration and intimidation and wonder to just love and loyalty and a sweet spot. Yeah, it's a really sweet spot for me. And if I was still in it every day, I probably would feel very differently. But the fact that I can come in, I miss it, and I yearn for it sometimes. And it's one of those things, I think, as a mom, where you shed your old self and da-da-da-da. And that's just me and my current story right now. I will probably go back to it. And it's not like I've been taken away from it or anything, or it's above or under anything to be in or out of it. None of that. It's just, that was a different Maggie at that point, because I have not been full-time in the industry since Sloan. So it's a before Sloan and an after Sloan. And that the before Sloan goes hand in hand with working in the restaurant industry and stuff. So it's definitely nostalgic and sentimental to me, looking back on those days, just falling in love and having fun and doing all those things. I was talking about staying up late, working hard, playing harder. And I think it's always a double-edged sword now, being a manager, when I have been a manager, acting as a manager. And even just walking around, being in there, I've always had to walk a funny line, because I gotta be cool, and I gotta be really funny, and I gotta be really lax and turn my head on some things, because I want to make my own personal relationships with people, and I'm not the boss. And I want them to be able to feel like they can do, be themselves around me, and vice versa, and I can be myself around them and not have to portray a certain type of thing because I'm the boss's daughter. But also, I don't want to be a bad influence, and I don't want to be a snitch, so it's always been really funny having to navigate that. I haven't agreed with rules, and I've also haven't agreed with coworkers, so I think I've done a really good job at it. I've just been authentically myself, and I'm not the owner. So, I've been able to be truthful about that. We have disagreements and we have agreements, and I get in trouble just like everybody else. As a matter of fact, I kind of got demoted the other day for doing private events because I was sick and I wasn't able to come in and work a party. And he just needs an entity there that can be there. And yeah. So, I mean, it happens to all of us, and I've just never tooted a horn like that. But at the same time, when I have had to flip the script, it has thrown some people off before and caused some riff. But the people that really matter, and then the ones that you want in your life and should be in your life, will move on from it and will totally understand that. So yes, I've had bridges unfortunately be burned with having to act as a manager, getting wrapped up in, well, your dad fired me, so I don't fuck with you anymore. Or I don't fuck with you because you're tied in with the Irish Bread Pub or whatever. But then there's several that know that I am still my own person, and they also know that there was a job to be done or a fault at hand and can separate that. And that's what really matters. And those are the people that I want in my life anyways. So that's never really bothered me. It's unfortunate from time to time, but if you look at it that way, it all plays out. And so that's what it's like working with family members. There are a lot of benefits because you do get to use that extra time to spend with them, and learn more about them and see how they are in a professional manner and how responsible they are and how they can function under pressure and under a time of dependability. But if it's not played the right way, it can also be straining, draining, stressful. If it's not with the right person, if it's not the right dynamic, if you're not careful, it can just sour a lot of people's image of the relationship in upper management, or the relationship going on in general as a whole, you know. And that's just with any job. I mean, that's why there are some places that have HR and it's strictly not allowed, but it's hard to do in a small restaurant, in a private restaurant. And sometimes it might be hypocritical, especially, you know, if it is a married couple, oftentimes it is, that owns the restaurant. So, you know, it's funny where it's like, well, the wife and the husband own the restaurant and they work together. It would be kind of funny to be in that situation but not allow it. But I do understand corporate and stuff like that, but we're not in corporate, so that's fine. I've actually never worked for a real corporate. All of those have been locally owned, and I'm proud to work and support for locally owned restaurants. The boundaries, wish I'd drawn sooner. I love my history in the restaurant, so I don't wish that I'd drawn boundaries on not working in it, because I'm so glad that I did work in it. But I do wonder what I would have done had I had a boundary drawn up where I just was never going to be employed in an industry or by my dad in the restaurant industry. Who knows? But I wanted to, so I did. And so there are not many boundaries that I wish I would have drawn sooner. I also have a successful relationship and marriage from it. So as far as I'm concerned, I think I did draw all the appropriate boundaries, and Mathen and I were able to separate it and know also when it was time to get out of it and not work together. If we still did it, would we still be making it? I don't know, because the involvement of being around alcohol and all that, like it's not going to lead to great places for many. I can promise you that, unless, you know, you become somebody, one of the two has to become, it's a mutual decision to just like not drink, or I don't know, you just happen to not have any problems when you drink. I don't know. But odds are that's not going to happen. Managing friends has been hard, because although I want to separate being a manager and being a friend and know how to do that, it's not always been reciprocated, like I said. And so that's been hard to navigate and to get to that point with a lot of friends. I mean, I remember one time, one of my dearest friends, I was managing on a shift or something like that, or working, and she turned off her location and didn't come to work. And that sucked, you know? I mean, it put us in a bad spot, and at work professionally. And then it sucked because I was there and involved in it and was in a position of management where I needed to feel some type of way about it. And also, like, it was directly to me. So it's like, well, I thought, you know, come on now. Like, I thought you can tell me what's going on. So that kind of thing has been tough, but also, like, she's the right person to be in my life, so we've gotten through it and moved past it. That's just a funny memory now, but straight up hid locations, I can't even remember. I think she said she was sick or something. Her ass was in Troy. But stuff like that, whereas if I was just a friend, I would be on the other side laughing about it as well. But because I'm the one stuck at work and everything, there was definitely tension for a while. I'm sure she thought I was probably mad at her, but madder on a deeper level. And I was just like mad at the time, obviously, probably not even that mad. One time, a dear friend of mine, we're still friends, but he wanted to go home and I was like, no, I was like, let me check your side work and stuff. And so I checked his side work and like he still had so much to do. He didn't do it. And I was like, you need to do this. And he blew up on me and it was just a bad night. He was cussing at me and yelling. So I had to pull my phone out and I was like, I'm just going to record you because I know I'm a woman. I hate even saying that. I know that I cannot force another human to do anything. Nobody can force another human to do anything. And so, fortunately, I'm just going to have to video to be able to show that I did what I could. This is what I said, and this is what I got reacted with. And again, we made amends and moved on from it. But, yeah, stuff like that is definitely funny. I mean, I've gotten in so many arguments with people that I'm not, that were just employees that have moved on or quit or whatever. Just for petty shit. Like, hey, can you please finish up this one last thing before you go? And then it's a whole knockdown drag out. We were friends 5 seconds ago, but now it's like cussing me up left and right. Those are definitely some learning the hard way moments that we can laugh at now, I feel like. I think I want to do a part 2. Unfortunately, my child is waking up from a nap, so I have to go. But I do want to do this again. I think that was fun, and I hope you can bear with me on my choppiness. I was nervous. I'm not nervous anymore. But I want to do some server betrayal lists and some double-edged swords and just talk about some more in-depth pros and cons about growing up and maybe some more of the harsher truths. That was a good memory jogger. I've never really sat down and just really discussed the impact that it's all had. So I kind of want to take a deep dive on myself and analyze that, and the next solo episode come back with some good things. Yeah, so next week we're going to have some really good interviews. I'm excited. I'm going to have a different Chad on. His name's Chad Peoples. Should have another Auburn local, Bryson Byrne. He's also a local comedian. Performs upstairs at the pub on Thursday nights. Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. So those are our next 2 lined up. I've got several more. That's another thing. I'm really, really, really organized and stuff, but this has not fit its way in yet, and I got to get better on my scheduling. So I have people lined up, but it's just all over the place, all in my head. But we're moving and grooving. This has been so fun so far. If you've got a story that you want to tell from the industry, if you've got a testimony to speak on, please shoot me a message. I would love to talk with you and have you on. Everybody has a story to share and a different perspective and point of view, a different angle. I feel like everyone has a different narrative and why they're in the service industry. I'm excited. Reach out to me. Thanks for clocking out with us, you guys. Until next time, keep your pans clean, keep your drinks strong, and keep your confessions ready, okay? We'll see y'all. Clocking out. It's Maggie with Dry Storage Confessionals.